Do you have questions about your employment rights? Ask a Lawyer is here for you. Each week, experts from EmploymentLawyer.ca answer your questions. Visit cp24.com/askalawyer and watch Wednesdays at 9:30 p.m. on CP24.
Hello there and welcome again to Ask a Lawyer right here on CP24. Good to have you along, hopefully for the entire 30 minutes. We got a lot of knowledge to impart onto you, so you'll learn a lot about employment rights and your workplace. That's why we do this show every week. My name's John Scholes, simply the host. Our lawyer, Lior Samfiru, will be on your screen momentarily. I will tell you right off the top, though, how to reach out to Lior anytime, on your own time. Phone number 1-855-821-5900 is the phone number. Help at EmploymentLawyer.ca and the website PocketEmploymentLawyer.ca. If you have not visited that yet, you will shortly, and we'll have it on full display in just a bit because it's a very useful tool. And there's other things you can glean from that website to make you all that much smarter moving forward with your employment for the years to come. So again, PocketEmploymentLawyer.ca. Main topic in just a bit will be fixed term contract FAQ. That is on the way, but Lior, we always start off, pal, with the case of the day, the week that was. What is cooking on your end?
Hey, John, employment law. So excited to be here to talk about that very, very important topic. We want to understand, all our viewers have to understand that topic because we all have jobs. If we're working, whether it's full-time, part-time, whether we've been working for years or just started, we have a lot of rights. And our laws in this province are some of the best employment laws anywhere. And if you don't believe me, watch the show for 30 minutes. You'll understand. You'll learn what your rights are. If you think there's no way out, if you think the law doesn't help you, guess what? There's probably and very likely a solution. Whether you're being mistreated in the workplace, whether your boss changed your job, changed your hours, your pay, maybe you lost your job. Guess what? The law can intervene in all these circumstances to make sure that there's a just and fair result for you. And on the show, we tell you all those things because there's a lot of misconceptions out there. There's a lot of half-truths and information that is just completely false. And you may even read something in the U.S. and you think that applies in Ontario. Wrong. It doesn't. Much better employment laws here. And if you ever find yourself in a situation where now you want to take that next step, you want to actually enforce those rights beyond just knowing about them, call me or email me. We'll give you that contact information throughout the show. But I always like to start off with the situation that came across my desk. Now, John, I spoke with an individual that had worked for about 4 years now in the tech industry and was let go as a result of major restructuring. Unfortunately, a lot of people in that industry have recently lost their jobs. Now, this person, other than his salary, also had significant bonuses. He had a car allowance. He had stock options. He had probably 4 or 5 perks beyond just his salary. And when he was let go, company said, we're going to give you 4 months' pay. He's been there for 4 years, but just of your salary, nothing else. So he called me, and he wanted to understand his rights. Well, first of all, for him, 4 months was not enough. After 4 years, he was owed 6 to 8 months. But the key here is it's total compensation. So the company said, we're only going to pay your base salary. Wrong. They owed him compensation, his severance, based on all his components. They had to include his bonus, his car allowance, his stock options, etc. All of that has to be included. And I'm going to help him get that resolved very quickly. But there's such an important reminder there for all our viewers. When it comes to your severance, it's not just your salary. All components of compensation have to be included. If you want to know if something has to be included in your severance package, you ask yourself if you would have gotten it had you continued working. If the answer is yes, you get it as part of your severance.
It makes me think of people that are in the sales end of things. You know, they got a commission coming, and they get luck. They've done their job selling what they had to sell, but they let go maybe 2-3 months before the commission is supposed to come in. What happens in that case, right?
Generally speaking, if you've fulfilled your obligation when it comes to commission, you've done what you're supposed to do to earn that commission, and you've done it successfully, you have to get that paid, even if you're let go before the check is actually written. Company can't avoid paying you what you've earned just because they chose a convenient termination date.
If you go to EmploymentLawyer.ca anytime, among other things, you will learn contact information. You'll realize that Lior and I have for about a dozen years now been doing radio across the country, locally here in the GTA. News Talk 1010. Sundays at 1 p.m. We get a lot of phone calls. We love talking to you. Love you take the time to phone into the show. Ask your questions. Everybody learns from it. We like to play them back on this show, as you know, and dig into it a little further. So we'll get our first phone call from the radio show coming at you right now.
I'm a real estate agent. I've been with this brokerage for almost 5 years. I was considered more of an independent contractor due to an extremely stressful work environment and some personal issues going on in my family. I took a leave of absence, but they terminated me basically a month before I was expected to go back. They offered me a 3-week severance pay, and they are giving me a week and a half to sign. I've earned basically about $125,000 of future commissions that I haven't been paid out yet. Kind of a little stuck on what to do, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it's the real estate contractor. We've heard this so many times before, right?
So let me tell you something that's going to may shock a lot of people.
No.
Real estate agents almost always, in the eyes of the law, will be considered employees. A lot of them are considered, on paper, independent contractors, or think they're independent contractors, or the brokerage houses they work for call them independent contractors. Guess what? You are likely an employee. You work exclusively for one brokerage house. You work there full time. You do what they tell you, etc. You are an employee. So this person whose call we received is likely an employee, not an independent contractor. That means when he is let go, he's owed severance. Of course, he's also owed his commission. We were talking about that a moment ago. If he did his job to earn that $125,000 in commissions, he has to get it paid, even if the company let him go. So we know he is an employee with about 5 years of seniority. The company, the brokerage house, says 3 weeks is all you get. Is that right? Well, of course it's wrong, but let me show you how wrong it is. We're going to use our severance calculator tool right now. You can find it at PocketEmploymentLawyer.ca, and let's see what it tells us. So he's an employee, we know that, real estate agent, been there for 5 years, 56 years of age. Company says, yeah, 3 weeks, we're going to be generous. Well, you see right there, he's owed as much as 8 months of severance, 8 months, in addition to, of course, his unpaid commission. So he's been wrongfully dismissed. You can do the same thing for yourself. Go to PocketEmploymentLawyer.ca. Use the severance calculator tool whenever you lose your job.
All right, good warm-up. We're just getting started. We'll take a short break. On the other side, fixed-term contract FAQ. That is coming right up. Stick with us right here on Ask a Lawyer on CP24.
You have questions about your employment rights? Ask a Lawyer is here for you. Each week, experts from EmploymentLawyer.ca answer your questions. Visit cp24.com/askalawyer and watch Wednesdays at 9:30 p.m. on CP24.
And welcome back. Ask a Lawyer here on CP24. John Scholes and, of course, employment lawyer Lior Samfiru joins us every week, reaching out. Really simple. 1-855-821-5900. Ask at EmploymentLawyer.ca is the email address we use. Now, we want to get into our main topic. We have one every week because this is always informative, Lior. You always learn tons from it. Fixed-term contract FAQ. Right into number one. What are fixed-term contracts?
So most people, when they're hired until either they leave, they quit, or until their employer lets them go. It's an indefinite duration. We don't know when we start how long we're going to be working for. Maybe it's going to end up being 6 months, maybe 26 years. But a fixed-term contract is different. A fixed-term contract is when you're hired for a specific indefinite period of time. Maybe it's 6 months, maybe it's 2 years, a specific period of time. We know when the end date is. Now, for a fixed-term contract, really would have to be in writing. It would have to stipulate when you start when the date's going to be. And usually what happens is you can expect to work until the end of that contract. But there's some unique things when it comes to fixed-term contracts that we want to talk about that may impact your rights.
So what happens if the company decides to bail out early and end the contract before it's elapsed the entire time?
So this is where the interesting part happens with the fixed-term contract. The general rule with the fixed-term contract is that if you are let go before the end of the contract, the company still has to pay you until the end of it, to the balance of the contract. So I'll give you an example. Let's say you signed up to a 2-year contract, a 2-year fixed term, and 6 months before or 6 months after you started working, the company lets you go. They're allowed to do that, but guess what? They have to still pay you till the end of the 2 years. So in this example, they have to pay you for another 1.5 years. So the general severance rules don't necessarily apply in a fixed-term contract. We don't have to calculate your severance. Your severance really is until the end of the contract. Now, if you work till the end, you don't get anything else. If you're let go before, you still have to get paid, and that could be a substantial amount of money.
What happens if it's the flip side of that? So you've got a 1-year contract, the 1 year lapses, goes into a year and a half. You just keep working, right?
So you signed up for a 1-year contract, the date came and went, and you're still there. What the law says in that situation, if you're now working beyond the fixed term, you become a regular indefinite employee. So you were supposed to be done December 31st, but come Jan 1, you're still there, you're still working, you're now an indefinite employee under an oral, unwritten employment agreement, which is a good thing. That means you have the full protection of the law. And that also means that if you're let go at some point, you're going to be owed severance because you went past the end of the contract. So for an employee, that's a good thing. You don't want to ask for a new contract. You're happy to continue working in that situation.
We've seen this many times with private school teachers, for an example. If it's a fixed-term contract, how many times can you keep renewing and renewing and renewing, right?
So that happens with fixed-term contracts often. It certainly happens when we talk private school teachers, where every year at the end of the school year, I sign a new agreement for the new year, but not just with private school teachers. It can happen in many situations. Well, what happens in that situation is you pretty much expect to continue working. Yeah, I know my contract is expiring on June 30th, but I, based on past history, I know I'm going to continue working. Generally speaking, once we're past 3 contracts, once you've had 1 contract, 2, 3, once we're past that, the law says, well, enough is enough. Unless there's a good reason to still consider you an indefinite or a fixed-term contract employee, you're now a regular indefinite employee. And that's important because after 4 contracts, the company says now we're not going to renew into a 5th contract. Well, they have to pay you severance, because you're not really on a contract anymore. The contract's kept renewing. You're now a regular indefinite employee, so full severance has to be paid that accounts for all your time with the company.
Right to contract 1 from when you started.
Right to the beginning. So I've had someone as a private school teacher for 10 years they were doing this, brand new contract. Finally, the school says we're not going to renew. Well, this person was owed over a year's severance to account for their 10 years of service.
As a reminder, again, News Talk 1010 Sundays at 1 p.m. Simply go to EmploymentLawyer.ca to find a station near you. But that's for us right here in the GTA. Call into the show, talk to us, ask your questions, and you might appear on this show as we get into our second phone call right here.
Yeah, I was let go about a week and a half ago from my job. I was there for about 4 years or so. I had a couple run-ins with absences that I was written up for due to things. I had a hernia surgery and I was off on modified duties. A week and a half ago, I sent a defect out to the customer that the employer said required a write-up. Now, this write-up, they said, had pushed me to the final stages of a progressive discipline structure. Does that entitle severance, or because of the absences, the random write-up is, in fact, with cause?
So an employer is expected to engage in progressive discipline. And what we mean by that is if you did something wrong, they're going to give you a warning, and then you did something else, maybe another warning, maybe then a final warning, and then maybe if it continues, you can be let go for cause. But here's the thing, John, those write-ups have to be legitimate. Well, this person says he was sick, he had to have surgery, and he was written up over that. That's ridiculous. What is the employer trying to accomplish? Don't have surgery? Don't need the hernia surgery? I mean, that's ridiculous. So no, those write-ups were not legitimate. It's ridiculous to punish someone for being sick or for needing time off work. Remember, it's very, very difficult to terminate employment for cause. It's the capital punishment of the employment relationship. And in this situation, no, it's not at that level. Maybe that defect that he sent to the client is something he should be written up for, but it doesn't drive him past the point where now he can be terminated for cause. In almost, 90% of the time, when I see someone that supposedly is terminated for cause, it's not cause. They're still owed their full compensation, their full severance, because whatever they did is just not bad enough to reach that level.
All right, good stuff. Lots more to go. In fact, phone call number 3 is coming up momentarily, but we'll take a quick break and get into that and so much more. So stick with us right here on Ask a Lawyer on CP24.
You have questions about your employment rights? Ask a Lawyer is here for you. Each week, experts from EmploymentLawyer.ca answer your questions. Visit cp24.com/askalawyer and watch Wednesdays at 9:30 p.m. on CP24.
You betcha. This is Ask a Lawyer on CP24. Thank you so much for joining us again this week. We do it every week at this time, so feel free to reach out anytime as well to Lior. The phone number 1-855-821-5900. You can send your emails to ask@employmentlawyer.ca, and the website, of course, pocketemploymentlawyer.ca. News Talk 1010 Sundays at 1 p.m. We'll take up that hour of your afternoon to call into our radio show, the Employment Law Show, and ask some questions here in the GTA. As promised, phone call number 3, Lior, from that show is coming up right now.
I had a coworker that was let go after 13 years, got 39 weeks severance, and the company made him sign a letter saying that he would take no further action against the company for collecting any extra money. Should he have signed that, or what would happen if you don't sign it? Would the company just give you minimum?
Great question. Yeah.
Great question, and this is really the reason we started this show all these years ago. So let me answer that. Whenever you're let go, when the company offers you severance, in exchange for the severance, they want you to sign a document called a release. That document says once they pay you, that's it, you're done, you can't change your mind. You never, ever, ever sign that document before talking to me, because there's a 90+% chance that whatever you've been offered is a lot less than what you're owed. Never sign it. So this person that called, we know that he signed that agreement. He agreed to accept 39 weeks after 13 years of employment. So the question is that enough? Now, we know that 39 weeks is about 9 months of pay. So is that enough? It's not enough, but let me show you why it's not enough. We're going to go back and use our severance calculator tool. You can find that at pocketemploymentlawyer.ca. So 13 years of employment at the age of 51 was offered 39 weeks. That's about 9 months. Well, we know, we can see right at the bottom that he's owed as much as 16 months. 16 months. So he was wrongfully dismissed. Unfortunately, he accepted that severance. He shouldn't have signed it. Instead, we could have negotiated proper severance. It's not hard, it doesn't take a long time, and it could have resolved very quickly. Can't go back once you sign, so don't ever do that without talking to me.
I want to make mention that not only Lior, but a bunch of his great lawyers at the firm also do a lot of live streaming on YouTube and Facebook. You can join that anytime. Simply go to @stlawyers.ca. And here is a question for this week. Lior says, I was never given an employment contract to sign when I started my current job. Is it harder to enforce my rights without one? Should I ask my employer to create a contract for me? No.
John is shaking his head, and no, please don't ever do that. So it's not hard to enforce your legal rights without a contract. It's easier. The only thing that happens if you don't have a written employment agreement in place is that you have the full protection of the law. You have all the legal rights that the law provides. With an employment agreement, what usually happens is that agreement takes away those rights, eliminates them. You give them up. So you're better off not having that written employment agreement. Be very grateful that you don't have it. If you're let go, you have rights that are not compromised. If the company does anything to you, you have rights that have not been compromised. So no, don't ever ask your employer for a written employment agreement. That handshake deal is much, much better, John.
Still got some time to go, Lior. We'll do that momentarily on the other side of the break. We'll get to an email. Thank you for joining us as we continue here. So stick around. There's more to go right here on Ask a Lawyer on CP24.
You have questions about your employment rights? Ask a Lawyer is here for you. Each week, experts from EmploymentLawyer.ca answer your questions. Visit cp24.com/askalawyer and watch Wednesdays at 9:30 p.m. on CP24.
And welcome back. Thank you so much for sticking with us here on Ask a Lawyer. You have the opportunity to reach out anytime to Lior and his amazing team. Make that phone call on your own time. 1-855-821-5900. Email ask@employmentlawyer.ca. And always the website. Might be your first stop, as a matter of fact, pocketemploymentlawyer.ca. Want to get to an email here, Lior. Here we go. It says, my coworker quit last week after months of harassment by our manager. Instead of replacing him, the company shifted his workload to me. I'm not familiar with his type of work, and the quality of my original work is now being affected.
So let's talk about the coworker first, the one that had to quit because being harassed. So remember, an employer has the legal obligation to treat you properly, not to have a poison work environment. So that person, if it got so bad that they have to quit, they need to contact me because that could be a constructive dismissal. If you leave, if you quit because you're being mistreated, bullied, harassed, the law says that's a termination. You're not leaving because you want to spend more time on the golf course. You're leaving because you were treated so badly. So that entitles you to your full severance. That could be as much as 24 months. But what about this other employee that now has been getting all these responsibilities and doesn't feel like he's able to do the job? What we don't want here is the company to penalize him because he's not doing a good job. Right. So what does he do? He sends an email or a text message. Email, I think, works best to the company. Says, hey, company, I'm very concerned. You have asked me to do all these other things. I don't have the qualification or the experience. I'm worried I'm not going to do a good job. I'm going to try my best. Maybe you could provide me with some help or training. Say that in writing. So later on, they can't just say, well, you did a bad job for no reason. So tell them that. If at that point they don't do anything and then they want to let you go because you didn't do a good job, that's always going to be a without cause termination. You're going to be entitled to severance. But if they're asking you to do something you can't really do, but you don't say anything, you just try your best, but you're not doing a good job because you don't know how to do it, they absolutely can hold that against you because you didn't say there was a problem. So tell your employer that that's an issue. Make sure at that point that they know about it. And if they let you go, you better believe you're going to be owed severance.
One of those situations where if you let it fester, it could be bad, right? Implied term, right?
And by the way, what do I say about silence? Silence is the same as acceptance. So if your company does something to you and you don't say anything, you want to be the good soldier, which of course is admirable, but that silence it's as if you're saying, I'm okay with this. Don't let that happen. If you don't agree, say so in writing and protect your legal rights. And with that, we are out of time. Thank you so much for tuning in this week. We'll be back next week. In the meantime, you can always reach out to Lior by phone. 1-855-821-5900 is how you do that. The email is ask@EmploymentLawyer.ca if you haven't used that before. And that website is so important, so important. It's free, it's anonymous, access to the severance calculator. That is called PocketEmploymentLawyer.ca. And join us, remember, Sundays, 1 p.m., News Talk 1010 for the radio show. Call into that and we'll get you on air possibly as well. Thank you so much, and we'll catch you next week right here on Ask a Lawyer on CP24.